The dawn of the 20th century promised a new era of progress, but it would soon be overshadowed by the darkest conflicts humanity had ever known. This is the story of two world wars, a saga of unprecedented destruction, and the resilient hope that rose from its ashes. In 1914, a single shot in Sarajevo ignited a fire that would engulf the globe. What became known as the Great War, or World War I, was unlike any conflict seen before. A complex web of alliances, imperial ambitions, and fervent nationalism drew nations into a devastating meat grinder. On the Western Front, millions of men disappeared into a nightmarish world of trenches, mud, and barbed wire. Life was measured in inches of gained territory, at the cost of countless lives. This was a new kind of war, industrialized and impersonal. Machine guns cut down soldiers in waves. Artillery barrages turned lush landscapes into cratered moonscapes, erasing towns and villages from the map. For the first time, chemical weapons were deployed, a terrifying innovation that brought an agonizing death, choking the very air men breathed. Tanks, clumsy but formidable, rolled across no man's land, signaling the end of cavalry charges and the beginning of mechanized warfare. Above, primitive aircraft engaged in duels, a prelude to the aerial bombardments that would define the next war. From the fields of Flanders to the vast Eastern Front and the shores of Gallipoli, the conflict redrew the map of the world. Great empires that had stood for centuries, the Austro-Hungarian, the Ottoman, the Russian, crumbled under the strain of total war. The loss of life was staggering. An entire generation of young men was lost, leaving behind a legacy of grief and trauma that would haunt their nations for decades. In 1918, the guns finally fell silent. But the Treaty of Versailles, intended to secure a lasting peace, instead sowed the seeds of future conflict. The harsh terms imposed on Germany created deep-seated resentment and economic hardship. Across Europe, the Roaring Twenties gave way to the Great Depression, a time of crippling unemployment and political instability. In this desperate climate, extremist ideologies found fertile ground. In Italy, Benito Mussolini and his fascists rose to power. In Germany, a nation humiliated and broken, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party promised to restore national pride and strength. In Japan, an increasingly militaristic government pursued aggressive expansion across Asia, beginning with the invasion of Manchuria. The world watched with growing unease as the fragile peace began to fracture. The League of Nations, an ambitious project to prevent future wars, proved powerless to stop the tide of aggression. In 1939, the world plunged back into darkness. Nazi Germany's invasion of Poland triggered a chain reaction, and World War II began. This was not a war confined to trenches. It was a total war, a global war, fought on every continent and every ocean. It was a war of ideologies, a desperate struggle between democracy and the tyranny of fascism. The Nazi Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, stunned the world. Using coordinated attacks of tanks and aircraft, German forces overran Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France with terrifying speed. By 1940, Britain stood alone, defiant under the leadership of Winston Churchill, enduring the nightly terror of the Blitz as German bombers rained destruction upon its cities. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the largest land invasion in history unfolded as Germany turned on its former ally, the Soviet Union. This became a brutal war of annihilation, characterized by unimaginable savagery and colossal casualties on both sides. The Battle of Stalingrad would become a pivotal turning point, a symbol of Soviet resistance that began to turn the tide against the seemingly invincible German war machine. In the Pacific, the Empire of Japan continued its campaign of conquest. The surprise attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, brought a sleeping giant into the war, the United States. The conflict was now truly global. From the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of Southeast Asia, Allied and Axis forces clashed in epic battles. The Battle of Midway shattered Japan's naval supremacy, while the D-Day landings in Normandy on June 6, 1944, opened the long-awaited Second Front in Europe. This war was fought not only by soldiers, but by entire populations. Factories were retooled for war production. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, and civilians on the home front faced rationing and constant fear. The war also revealed the depths of human depravity. The Holocaust, the systematic state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of other victims by the Nazi regime, remains a permanent stain on the conscience of humanity, a horrific testament to where hatred and intolerance can lead. As Allied forces closed in from the east and west, the Nazi regime collapsed. In May 1945, victory was declared in Europe, but the war in the Pacific raged on. The final, terrible chapter of the war was written in August 1945, when atomic bombs were dropped on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The horrific power unleashed brought about Japan's surrender, finally ending the deadliest conflict in human history. The world that emerged from the rubble was profoundly changed. Cities lay in ruins, economies were shattered, and an estimated 70 to 85 million people were dead. The scale of the destruction was almost incomprehensible. Yet, amidst the devastation, a new resolve was forged. The world had stared into the abyss and was determined never to let it happen again. From the ashes of war rose a new hope for a better future. The victors of the war, determined to prevent another global catastrophe, came together to create the United Nations. Its mission was to maintain international peace and security, to foster friendly relations among nations, and to promote social progress, better living standards, and human rights. The Nuremberg trials held Nazi leaders accountable for their crimes, establishing the principle that even in times of war, individuals are responsible for their actions. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted, proclaiming the inalienable rights of every human being. The world wars had been a brutal lesson in the cost of nationalism, aggression, and hatred, but they also demonstrated the incredible resilience of the human spirit and the power of unity in the face of tyranny. The turning points of these two great wars remind us of our capacity for both immense destruction and incredible courage. They are a solemn warning etched in the memory of history, of the dangers we face when we forget our shared humanity, and they are an enduring inspiration, a testament to the idea that even after the darkest of nights, humanity can strive towards the light, towards a future of peace, freedom, and cooperation. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most defining chapters. If you found this story meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more turning points of history. We'll see you next time.